Hello, I welcome all of you for this session on the unit number 5, which is nothing but the duct design. Let me see what are the different points that we are going to discuss in the today's session for the duct design, as it being one of the important topic or the chapter for our subject of refrigeration and air conditioning. To start with the introduction for the duct design, we should first understand that why there is a need or the requirement for the duct is there in the air conditioning system. If you consider a very simple example in our day-to-day life, that suppose you are sitting in your drawing room or in your what you can say the bedroom, and for your own comfort conditions to maintain the required temperature, humidity, you normally install one packaged unit to condition the air in your bedroom or in your drawing room or the hall. Normally the requirements are there for a small capacity refrigeration or the air conditioning system, and in such conditions, in such situations, we normally fit a window air conditioner across the outer side of your window to get the required air at the necessary temperature and the relative humidity. The other arrangement may be that you can put a split AC in modern days. Okay, half of the components of the air conditioning system are outside the room or outside the wall. That is nothing but the compressor and condenser are on the outer side, and whereas the evaporator and the expansion device that is there on the inner side of the room to be conditioned. Now on the other hand, if you look some other example like that of air conditioning of a very big space, larger space, such as for any commercial applications, like that of a mall or a theater, auditorium, airport, big hotels and restaurants, metro stations. So it would be practically not feasible for us to install the number of such small window air conditioner or the split air conditioners to get that particular area to the comfort condition or as per our requirement. So in such commercial applications, we normally condition the air at some central location, at some suitable place, and then this conditioned air is then carried, transferred to the space or the region that need to be air conditioned. So under such circumstances, for such commercial application, just now we have seen, a centralized air conditioning systems are normally used, and the air is transferred through the channels or air is transferred through the what we can say the physical arrangement that is provided, known as the duct. So the main purpose of the duct is nothing but to convey the conditioned air from the air conditioning equipment to the space that is to be conditioned as per the requirement. And it is not only air should be transferred, but it should be properly and evenly distributed, so that whatever the number of occupants or the people that might be sitting in that air conditioned space may feel comfortable. And when it is not possible for us that the conditioned air cannot be directly supplied from the air conditioning apparatus to the space that is to be conditioned, as that is just now we are discussing for the central air conditioning systems, then the ducts need to be installed, the ducts need to be erected. So hence the function of the duct is nothing but to convey or to transfer, to transmit the air between the two different points, two different locations. One of the location out of these two is nothing but the AHU, that is nothing but the air handling unit, okay, which handles the outside air or fresh air with some part of the recirculated air, and other point is nothing but the place or the room which actually need to be conditioned, where the effect of that air has to be felt by the number of occupants. Now these ducts also carries the room air back to the air conditioning apparatus. It means that the part of the air which is coming out of the room, instead of directly discharging it to the atmosphere, so some of that would be recirculated and it will be mixed with the fresh air. So this recirculated air is also passed through the ducts. And one can definitely understand that the successful operation of any kind of a air conditioning system, so that definitely depends upon the sufficient circulation of the air. Why? Because we should know, or we should maintain the required quantity of the oxygen in the air which need to be circulated in the conditioned space. So it is essential that the proper selection of the duct size should be there, because it causes the careful estimation of the pressure losses, because we know that the pressure losses is nothing but the inseparable part of any system where the fluid flows through a system, like that we have seen in the flow through the pipes in the fluid mechanics. Whenever there is a flow of the fluid through the conduit or through the channel, so definitely some losses are likely to take place due to the flow of that particular fluid. So in case of the ducts, the losses are taking place due to the flow of the conditioned air through the ducts. And it should be also taken into consideration that the cost of the duct is normally 20 to 30% of the total cost of the equipments. So that is the thing, but 1/5 to the 1/3 cost of the equipment is borne by the ducts only. So duct form the very major important element in the central air conditioning systems. And it is also essential that the fan is normally placed at the air handling unit, and it discharges the air through the ducts and then it is admitted to the conditioned space. So this fan also contributes the sufficient substantial of the running cost. So not only the cost of installation that is taken into consideration, but we should also look there for the cost of the running, cost of operation of that system as well. So two primary requirements for the duct system or the duct design is that the capital cost of such system should be lowered. It should be as minimum, least as possible, along with the low running costs. So these two parameters must be taken into consideration. Now, having looked at this particular arrangement which shows the schematic of an air conditioning system, a block diagram has been shown here. This block diagram typically shows the different types of the ducts that we normally use in various applications. And if the diagram is seen carefully, on the extreme left side we can see the outdoor air, outside air, the fresh air that is passing through the that particular space. Then part of this air is mixed with the return air coming from the conditioned space. Okay, that is a return air damper which is shown, which regulates the quantity of air passing from the return air duct. Outside air damper, that also varies the discharge, or we can say the quantity of the air, that is fresh air getting admitted into that duct. The filters are placed to remove any impurities, dust, dirt, or such undesirable components need to be filtered before the air can be conditioned or treated according to the requirements. And then you are having the air conditioning equipment, air handling unit, we can say, fan, and then the conditioned air with the help of the fan is discharged through the ducts to the conditioned space. So that is what the arrangement for this typical air conditioning system is shown. And if we look at the different ducts which can be identified in such air conditioning system, can be listed as the fresh air duct. So as the name indicates, the fresh air, it means that the outdoor air, atmospheric air, the fresh air must be taken from the surrounding. So in the duct which carries this fresh air is called as the fresh air duct. Why the fresh air is required? The fresh air is required because we need to maintain the sufficient level of oxygen in the air which need to be admitted in the air conditioned space. Then the supply air duct, the duct that can be seen between the fan and the air conditioned space. So the purpose of this supply air duct is nothing but to supply the air from the air conditioning equipment to the space or the room or the region that we need to condition. Then we can have the return air duct. So the return air duct can be seen in the arrangement which leads from the air conditioning space and back to the fresh air duct. Okay, the reverse channel that we can see here. So this return air duct carries the recirculated air from the conditioned space back to the air conditioned apparatus. This return air essentially reduces the load on the air conditioning system or the cooling coil. Then according to the pressures, we can classify the ducts as the low pressure duct, where the static pressure is less than 50 millimeters of the water. Now we will be looking at the static pressure in some later part of the discussion. And normally this static pressure in the ducts is given in millimeters of the water. That is a standard way or the practice used to express the static pressure. Medium pressure duct, so the static pressure that ranges up to 150 millimeter of the water. And similarly, if the static pressure ranges between 150 to 250 millimeter of the water, it would be called as a high pressure duct. Based upon the velocity, we can have the low velocity duct, high velocity duct. Velocity is up to 600 meter per minute. Such type of the ducts would be normally called as the low velocity duct. And where the velocity of the air that ranges more than 600 meter per minute, such ducts can be classified as a high velocity duct. So these are nothing but the different types of the duct. Those are used for the air conditioning system. The another major consideration for the duct design or air conditioning system is nothing but the size of the duct, then the shape of the duct, the material which are used for their construction of the duct. Now, some of the requirements for the duct size are been discussed in these following points. The duct should be sized to get accommodated within the available space. Okay, so the size should be fabricated, manufactured in such a way that whatever the space that is available for us, so it should be accommodated, it should be fixed in that space. As the air which passes through the ducts may be at a lower velocity or maybe at the higher velocity, but it definitely possesses some velocity. So the duct suffers the pressure drop due to the friction. So friction between the flow of the air and inner surfaces of the duct that normally takes place. So due to which there is a pressure drop which takes place across the length of the duct. And the mathematics is very clear here, algebra is very clear that we can see. Larger the air velocity, greater will be the frictional and the pressure drop. Or we can say that the greater will be the frictional pressure drop. Another one, the fan which is selected for delivering the air from the air handling unit to the conditioned space has to overcome the resistance which is offered by the different components of the air conditioning system, such as the cooling coil is installed there, the filters are there to filter the air, to clean the air, supply and the return air outlets, and the dampers to regulate the quantity of the air. So all these are nothing but some of the resistances which are been added due to the flow of the air. So such resistance should be overcome by the fan. So the selection of the fan is also nothing but an important element in the design of an air conditioning system. And it is nothing but the fan which has to work against these heads or against these losses which takes place due to the different auxiliaries present in the air conditioning system. And as these heads increases, the losses increases, so definitely the power which is required for the operation of the fan would be higher, or we can say the cost which is required for the running cost which is required for the operation of that fan would be definitely higher. And again it is very clear, as the velocity increases, the other parameter, that is nothing but the noise, also increases. Noise which takes place due to the flow of the air, that also increases, so which is a undesirable one. So we should maintain a proper balance between the higher and the lower values of the velocities, isn't it? It means that the velocity of the air should be within some reasonable limits, reasonable levels. It should maintain the proper balance between the the power requirement for the operation of the fan, the cost of running for the fan, and on the other side the noise should also be taken into consideration. So these two, what you can say, the points should be properly balanced. With the lower velocities, the size of the ducts increases, they occupy the more space. So hence, while designing the duct system, we should maintain a proper balance between the different parameters, different elements, such as the initial cost, that is the thing but the consisting of the cost of the material of the duct, and the cost of the fabrication which is required for the duct, cost of installation and erection of the duct. So all these are nothing but the initial costs, and the running cost as well, that is nothing but the power which is required for the operation of the fan. So this should be there for the given flow rates of the air. So we should maintain the proper balance between these. Just now we have said that the air that flows through the duct, whether we can say at lower or the higher velocities, it definitely suffers the pressure loss. And these pressure losses are nothing but, very tentatively, broadly speaking, can be of the two types. One, that is a frictional loss, which primarily or the essentially takes place due to the surface friction. It means that the friction between the air that is flowing through the duct and the inner surface of the duct in which the air is coming in contact with. And second is nothing but the dynamic losses. So losses which are taking place due to the sudden changes in the direction of the airflow. So not all the time the air would be, say, flowing in a straight path, isn't it? Air need to be admitted at the different locations. So definitely it would be required that the direction of the air would be changed in practical applications. Somewhere it need to be turned toward the left, right, upward, downward, or maybe in the inclined fashion as well. So the losses would be taking place due to the changes in the direction, which are nothing but the dynamic losses. Now the variation of the pressure losses, that is directly proportional to, we can say, on the different parameters, such as increase in the duct length. So higher being the duct length, so larger will be the pressure losses. If there are the frequent changes in the direction of the duct route, losses are going to be there on the higher side. If you pass the air abruptly, repeatedly, from the larger to the smaller ducts, means that if you are changing the area suddenly, number of times, you are changing the area abruptly from the larger to the smaller duct, the losses are going to increase. The formation of the eddies are likely to take place at the abrupt point of the contraction. So eddies also results in the increase in the pressure losses, that is undesirable. Similarly, if you pass the air through the abrupt expansion, enlargement, abrupt enlargement, sudden enlargement is there in the flow of the air through the ducts. So there are definitely more chances that the eddies are likely to be created, and definitely the losses are going to increase. So these losses can be definitely reduced, or they can be kept to the minimum level, provided we reduce these changes in the direction, changes in the gradual instead of the abrupt. So you should change the areas gradually, either increasing or decreasing instead of the abrupt increase or decrease. So that fundamental principle information we have also seen in the fluid mechanics while studying the chapter there onto the flow through pipes. Another important element in the duct design is nothing but the duct material, because duct material is nothing but which accounts for the initial cost of the duct, isn't it? So there should be appropriate selection of the duct material based upon the various parameters. So different materials may be used for the construction of the duct. On the left hand side, the number 1, number 2 and number 3. So these are nothing but the metallic materials or the sheets which are used for the construction of the duct, whereas number 4, 5 and 6, these are nothing but the non-metallic materials used for the construction of the duct. So So not all the time that we are going for the metallic ducts or the non-metallic ducts. So depending upon the requirement of the need of that particular air conditioning system, we will make a appropriate choice between the metallic duct materials or the non-metallic duct materials. Galvanized iron sheet metal, aluminum sheet metal, black steel sheet, I will say, these are the metallic materials used for the duct construction. The resin bonded fiberglass, cement asbestos, and the wood may also be used for the construction of the duct. As far as the metallic ducts are concerned, galvanized sheet metals. So these are very commonly used in the construction of the ducts, and they are provided with the zinc coating, which helps to prevent the rusting, and it also avoids the cost of the painting, which may be required in some other metallic materials. And the thickness of the duct, or we can say the sheet, that normally ranges from 26 gauge, that is around 0.55 millimeters, to the 16 gauge, which is nearly equal to 1.6 millimeters. So this is nothing but the thickness of the sheet which can be used for the galvanized sheet metal for the construction of the ducts. We may have the aluminum sheet metal. So aluminum sheet metal are normally preferable as they are light in weight and they provide the good resistance to the moisture as well. Black sheet metal, they are always painted unless it withstand the high temperature. Stainless steel are normally used for the special applications, okay, for the maximum resistance, as they offer maximum resistance to the moisture. And due to the higher cost of the stainless steel, so they are least preferred. So that's why it is mentioned there, it is nothing but the special applications. And whereas for the non-metallic ducts, resin bonded glass fiber, they are say having two major advantages, I will say. Their strength is quite high, they are strong enough, and they are easy to manufacture. Cement asbestos, these are normally used for the applications where the underground air distribution is normally is the case. So this may be a particular example which can be given for this underground air distribution is nothing but you may have the underground metro station, isn't it? So under that circumstances one may prefer for the cement asbestos duct material, and they are also used for exhausting the corrosive materials. Then the wooden ducts, least preferred, and they are normally used when the air is say what you can say, it is drier, more dry we can say, or the moisture content in the air is very less. Under that circumstances only the wooden ducts can be made use of. The another point of discussion for the duct design is nothing but aspect ratio. This aspect ratio is nothing but one of the important geometrical parameter which is required for the duct design, or say for making the calculations in the duct design. Now as such, in this particular arrangement, the two diagrams can be seen there, two block diagrams can be seen. One is nothing but a rectangular, another is nothing but the circular. So this rectangular and circular are nothing but the cross sections which are used for the construction of the duct. So ducts may be either made of the rectangular cross section or the circular cross section. If it is made of the circular cross section, so capital D, that represents the diameter of that duct, inner diameter of the duct, I will say. And if the duct is made of the rectangular cross section, then the longer side of the duct is written as A, and the shorter side of the duct, that is mentioned as B. Okay. So let us see what the aspect ratio is. The aspect ratio is nothing but the ratio of the longer side of the duct to the shorter side of the duct. So longer side, that is nothing but the A, shorter side, that is nothing but the B. So ratio of A and B is called as the aspect ratio. The aspect ratio that definitely affects the size of the duct, we can say. Higher being the aspect ratio, So more metal surface area is required for the same cross sectional area. Okay, it means that even though the cross sectional area is remaining unchanged, but if there is an increase in the aspect ratio, so the surface area required for the duct, that would be higher, so that is not desirable. Additionally, the higher aspect ratio increases the both initial as well as the running or the operating costs, because larger size, so larger cost would be required, and we can say the losses would also be increasing, so the operating cost will also increase. Whereas if we see there for the circular duct, so for the same cross sectional area, the circular duct requires lesser surface area, so they are compact. Okay, so they will provided if we are having the same cross sectional area for the rectangular and the circular ducts, then the circular ducts will occupy the lesser surface area for the same cross sectional area. So hence we can have the advantage of saving in the material, then saving in the cost of the fabrication, saving in the cost of the erection and the installations as compared to that of the rectangular ducts. Additionally, circular ducts offers lesser resistance to the flow due to the absence of the corners, isn't it? So that is one of the important benefit which can be gained due to the usage of the ducts of circular cross section instead of rectangular. But they are somewhat difficult to accommodate in the available space. Hence, the rectangular ducts are normally preferred in practice. Whereas for the rectangular duct, that should be made as square as possible. It means that the difference between the longer and shorter side should be as less as possible. The A and B, they should be as near as possible, because as less surface area is required for the same cross section area. Okay, and it is generally a thumb rule, we can say. For the rectangular ducts, the aspect ratio should not exceed 4:1. It means that the longer side is having the dimension 4, then the shorter side will have the dimension equal to 1. So that is the aspect ratio 4:1. Now, having looked at the preliminary information for the duct, so there are certain guidelines or the rules one can follow for the design of the duct, which should be taken into consideration. So let us look these guidelines, these rules one by one. The air should be conveyed as directly as possible to economize on power, material and space, isn't it? So losses would be lesser if the air is transferred directly to the air conditioner space. The sudden changes in the direction should be avoided, so that also we have discussed in the earlier discussion. And whenever the bends are essential, they are unavoidable, so the turning vanes should be placed in the ducts so that we can minimize the pressure losses. Air velocities in the duct should be within permissible limits to minimize not only the noise but to minimize the losses due to friction as well. If we are using the gradual section, so diverging section should be made gradual, and at the very broad level, the angle of this divergence should not exceed 20 degrees. The rectangular duct should be made as square as possible. So just now that we have seen in the previous slide, the dimensions A and B for the rectangular duct, so they should be as close as possible. A should be as nearly equal to the dimension B. The duct should be made of the smoother material such as the galvanized iron or the aluminum sheet metal, so as to reduce the losses due to the friction. The damper should be provided at each branch outlet so that we can balance the system. If the pressures are been well balanced, so definitely the losses would be lesser. The larger difference in the pressure, that indicates your system is not well balanced, and larger number of the pressure differences are existing in the system. Wherever possible, you need to avoid any obstacles or the obstruction in the ducts, which will keep your losses to the minimum extent. The different pressures which normally are inseparable in the duct system are the three pressures that we will say. One is the static pressure, another is nothing but the dynamic pressure, and third is nothing but the total pressure, which is nothing but the sum of the static pressure and the dynamic pressure. The static pressure P subscript S, it is also known as the stationary pressure. Why it is known as the stationary pressure? As it does not depend upon the air movement, it is independent of the air movement. So that's why it is called as the static pressure. And it will always exist in the system whether the air is flowing or whether the air is at the stationary condition, isn't it? So the presence of the static pressure will always be there in the system. In other words, it is also nothing but the pressure which acts against the walls of the ducts, and if this static pressure exceeds than that of the atmospheric pressure, surrounding pressure, so it is likely that the duct is likely to get burst, the duct is likely to get exploded, okay, if it exceeds the atmospheric pressure. Similarly, the duct will tend to collapse when this pressure is less than the atmospheric pressure. It means that if the negative pressure is there inside the duct, then the duct is likely to get collapsed. Now the static pressure overcomes the friction and the shock losses as the air flows from the fan outlet to the outlet of the duct in the duct system. And analytically, the value or the magnitude of this, not the magnitude I will say, it is nothing but the value of this static pressure may be either negative or it may be the positive. It may depend upon the various conditions. So it may either positive in some cases or it may be the negative in some cases as well. The dynamic pressure, also known as the velocity pressure, P subscript V. Now this pressure is nothing but equal to the drop in the static pressure necessary to produce the given velocity of the flow. It is essential that the air should flow from one section of the duct to the another section of the duct. So there must be a drop in the static pressure. So unless and until there is a drop in the static pressure, it is not possible for the air to accelerate through the duct. So this pressure is nothing but the velocity pressure. So it is equal to the increase of the static pressure when the velocity is reduced to the zero. And this pressure would be always positive. It will never be the negative. The velocity pressure will never be the negative. It may be minimum possible, it may be zero, and it will be always positive, then we can say. Whereas the static pressure, it may be positive or it may be the negative as well. The total pressure, so which is nothing but the algebraic sum of the static and the dynamic pressures. So it may be the positive or negative depending upon whether the static pressure is negative or positive. So PT, total pressure, is equal to PS plus PV, static pressure plus the dynamic or the velocity pressure. Some of the important points that we should know to carry out the mathematical analysis for the ducts or to calculate the various dimensional parameter, operating parameters in the duct design. So some points are of prime importance which we should remember. The pressures in the ducts are normally expressed in millimeter of water, and when the air is flowing through the duct, it is considered as a standard air unless otherwise stated. Okay, by default it is considered to be the standard air. What do you mean by the standard air? Which corresponds to the temperature of 20 degrees Celsius, the pressure is equal to 1.013 bar, relative humidity 62%, and the density of the air is equal to 1.2 kg per meter cube. You need to remember these particular numbers for which the air would be called as a standard air. The velocity pressure in the duct, when the velocity of the air V, that is say given to us in meter per second, then this velocity pressure can be given by the formula PV, rho A V square divided by 2. Rho A is nothing but the density of the air that we have mentioned as 1.2. So 1.2 into V square divided by 2. So that comes equal to 0.6, it comes to 0.6 V square. So this is expressed in the unit Newton per meter square. We need to convert this into millimeter of the water. So in the line which is there on the other side, lower side, the conversion is shown there. 1 Newton per millimeter square, that is equal to 1 divided by 9.81 millimeter of water. So further simplification to get the velocity pressure PV, that is equal to 0.6 into V square divided by 9.81. Why 9.81? Now I want to convert from Newton per meter square to millimeter of water. So if I make the necessary calculations, I will land up with the equation V divided by 4.04 bracket square millimeter of the water. You should remember here that the V is nothing but the velocity of the air passing through the duct and expressed in meter per second. Now if the velocity of the air is given in meter per minute, then we can subsequently modify the equation. Okay, V divided by 60 into 4.04. Okay, V is given in meter per minute, and then the final equation we can have inside the bracket V divided by 242.4 bracket square millimeter of water. So the second equation for the PV, in which the velocity should be expressed in meter per minute. In the above equation, the velocity is expressed in meter per second. Now to express the pressure losses in the ducts of the two different types, the frictional loss and the dynamic loss, we will be essentially focusing in this session for the friction losses. So losses which takes place due to the friction between the moving air and the interior surface of the duct. Okay, some velocity would be possessed by the air due to which it flows through the duct. So some resistance would be offered, some friction will take place. So due to this friction, whatever the loss that take place is nothing but the friction loss. Dynamic loss, so due to changes in the direction such as the bends, elbows, and the changes in the cross section of the duct, abrupt increase in the area of the duct or abrupt contraction in the area of the duct. So due to these reasons, the losses which are taking place are called as the dynamic losses. The pressure loss due to the friction is given by the equation, that is Pf equal to Fl divided by m into V divided by 4.04 bracket square, and this frictional pressure loss is obtained in millimeter of water. So what are these notations used? Pf, pressure loss due to friction in millimeter of water. F, the friction factor which depends upon the surface of the duct. So this friction factor would be normally given to you in the problem, or you need to record it from some suitable source, suitable, we can say, the graph. L, that is nothing but the length of the duct in meter. Capital V, mean velocity of the air flowing through the duct in meter per second. And M, that is nothing but the geometrical parameter known as the hydraulic mean depth. So which is nothing but the ratio of cross-sectional area of the duct to the weighted perimeter of the duct. So that is A divided by P. And on the right hand side, we can get the formula for the M. If we are having the circular duct of diameter D, then this hydraulic mean depth M equal to A divided by P. So that is equal to pi by 4 D square divided by the pi into D. So this leads to the equation D by 4. And if we are having the rectangular duct of side A and B, A is nothing but the longer side of the rectangular duct, B is nothing but the shorter side of the rectangular duct. So M equal to AB divided by 2 into A plus B. Now often we will be requiring the calculations for the equivalent diameter of the duct for the rectangular duct. Okay, normally we are using the rectangular ducts and their equivalent diameter should be calculated. So it would be calculated based upon the two different operating conditions. Condition number 1, when the quantity of the air passing through the rectangular duct and circular duct is same. Quantity of the air, it means that the volumetric flow rate, the discharge of the air passing through both the ducts, rectangular duct as well as the circular ducts, are same. Then to obtain the equation for the capital D for this condition, for this same discharge, the different parameters to be used are nothing but the capital Q, quantity of the air passing through the rectangular and circular ducts, A, longer side of the rectangular duct, B, shorter side of the rectangular duct, capital D, equivalent diameter of the circular duct, A subscript R, cross sectional area. Remember, it is a cross sectional area, not the surface area. Cross sectional area of the rectangular duct, A into B, P subscript R, weighted perimeter of the rectangular duct, that is twice A plus B, AC, again it is a cross sectional area for the circular duct, pi by 4 D square, P subscript C, weighted perimeter of the equivalent circular duct, pi into D, and rho A is nothing but the mass density of the air. So I will intentionally skip some of the steps here for the derivation. I will insist all of you to go through any book for the refrigeration air conditioning for the derivation, get the equation for the equivalent diameter of the duct provided the discharge or the quantity of the air passing through the rectangular and circular duct is same. So the final form of the equation, that is expressed here, capital D equal to rectangular bracket 32 into A cube B cube divided by pi square into A plus B entire bracket raised to 1 by 5, and if you put the value of the pi there, 3.14, and simplify the equation further, you can get the final form of the equation as capital D equal to 1.265 into the bracket A cube B cube divided by A plus B bracket raised to 1 by 5. So this formula would be required in the further part of the calculations for the duct size. The second condition is the first condition was nothing but the discharge is same for the rectangular and circular ducts. Just now we have seen. The second condition, when the velocity of the air passing through the rectangular and circular ducts is same. Okay, the velocity is same in either of the ducts. Similarly, I am expressing here the final form of the equation, capital D equal to 2AB divided by A plus B, which is equal to slight modification, slight simplification, 2A divided by A by B plus 1. And we know that this A by B, the longer side of the rectangular duct to the shorter side of the rectangular duct. So this ratio is known as the aspect ratio. So A by B is nothing but the aspect ratio. So we have covered some of the theoretical information which is important for the duct design. The mathematical treatment for the duct design, that would be discussed in the coming session. So I would suggest all of you to please go through these slides and try to understand each and every point that we discuss in this particular presentation. Refer any of the book, and next time we will come with the applications of some of the concepts that we have seen. So I will finish my particular session for the time being here. So have a good day. Take care.